in the book of Genesis. We have completed chapter 30. We are now in chapter 31. So what we have studied so far is about the life of Jacob. And Jacob came to Laban, served 7 years for Leah and Rachel. And then he has almost completed 6 years now. And they have an agreement for wages also. So he will get certain amount of flocks from Laban, certain type of flocks. So that is how we came to chapter 30. Now Jacob with his wives and children are with Laban, and God is blessing Jacob. What happened because of that? Let us start with chapter 31 verse 1. Genesis 31:1. And Jacob heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and of what which was our father's has he gotten all his wealth. Verse 2. Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban. Behold, it was not toward him as before. Shall we look to the Lord in prayer? Loving Heavenly Father, we say thank you to you for the time you have given to us to gather together and to study your word, even as we look into the life of Jacob and his problems and constraint he faced with Laban. Continue to speak to us, guide us, help us in our study. Give us a grace to apply all these things for our walk on this earth. Thank you for all those who joined. Continue to guide us through your Spirit. Committing the study of your word into your hands, we offer this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So we are going to look at now the relationship between Jacob and Laban, how it started and what direction it is going. You remember, Jacob ran away from his home because he deceived his father and his brother. Esau, his brother, said, when my father Isaac dies, I will kill Jacob. That is what started. So Rebekah, the mother, knowing this, sends Jacob to her brother Laban. So Jacob comes here to Laban. He serves Laban, looks after his flocks. 7 years for Leah, 7 years for Rachel. So he's married. He's got children. Then after the 14 years, we have seen in chapter 30 that Laban is asking Jacob, at the end of the 14th year, Jacob decides to return to his hometown, his father's place. So he goes to Laban and tells him, look at verse 30, chapter 30 and verse 27. Laban said to Jacob, I pray you, if I found favor in your eyes, tarry, for I learned by experience the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Now the cattle increased for Laban for the sake of Jacob. So Laban doesn't want Jacob to leave him at this stage. Then he comes with a proposal. What is your wages? Verse 31, you look at it, verse 31. Laban said, what shall I give you? What do you want? You fix up the wage. Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do these things, I will again feed and keep your flock. Here, we have studied last time, Jacob is asking for something which people would not have asked. It's a sheep and a goats. You all know how the sheep and goats are. Jacob says, if there is a spotted sheep, normally sheep are not spotted. They don't have spots. Or speckled sheep, they don't have speckles. Normally, you won't find them. Okay. He says, those things will be mine. So Laban is very happy to accept that. However, we know the blessing of God upon Jacob. When you come to the end of the chapter 30, he has more flocks than Laban. Let me read that. Verse 43, and Jacob increased exceedingly, and he had large flocks. Started with no flocks. He got large flocks. And because of that, he had maidservants, men servants, camels, and donkeys. So he prospered wealthy in terms of wealth. So in this background, we will look at chapter 31. So now the sons of Jacob, sons of Laban, are not happy with Jacob. What are they saying? They say in verse 1, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's. Now, it's not a very straightforward sentence. It is true what Jacob got originally belonged to their father Laban. That part is correct. But Jacob has not taken away any of them. They were all paid by Laban as a wage. That part they should understand. So exact wording, the way they were getting upset is not correct, because that's the wages given to Jacob. And he says, they say in verse 1, out of our father's wealth, Jacob has got his wealth. Now, if you notice, what Jacob did is he segregated his property and Laban's property. He had his sons, they were also looking after the sheep. So he took all the sheep which belonged to Laban and he kept it himself. He was looking after Laban's sheep, whereas he sent away his sheep, which are speckled and spotted, with his children. So Jacob was looking after the sheep of Laban. So whenever the sheep gave birth to speckled and spotted ones, he will put them with his son's flocks, which in effect belongs to him. Now, one more thing we need to understand. See, chapter 30, verse 30. This is very important because Laban knew, Laban's sons also knew. Jacob tells Laban something. Your flock was very little when before I came. Jacob is telling, when I came to you, you had a cattle very small amount. It was now increased unto a multitude. See the difference Jacob is talking, it's a fact. So he had a very small flock which they were looking after. When Jacob came and took over, it became a multitude. And the Lord has blessed you since my coming. Laban also realized the same thing. Laban also told Jacob, Lord bless me because of you. So the sons of Laban has seen this very clearly. The sons of Laban also knew the agreement Jacob made, which very effectively will prosper Laban normally. Because he's not asking for the normal sheep. He asked for the abnormal, the spotted ones. Now we can even think of, have you ever seen a spotted sheep? Sheep with a little spots, rare it is. So knowing all these things, they are not acknowledging God's blessing on Jacob. Now this is a very important lesson we need to learn. When we perceive and see things, sometimes it becomes emotional affection, emotionally affected. Here, what is emotionally affected thing? They become jealous because Jacob got more than what they have. They did not think, when we were looking after the flocks, they were very small. When Jacob came, their own flocks also increased. But Jacob got more. They could not connect it to the God of Jacob. Now, remember, Laban was worshipping idols. And Laban's sons were also like that. Leah came out fully. Rachel still had that affection to the idols. She stole the idols also. So we need to understand that. Probably God is speaking to that community, this group, because this is a group somewhat connected with Abraham also. So they should have seen the working of the God of Abraham. They would have understood probably, but they failed to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge. So this is one of the dangers we must avoid in our life. So when he come, what did they say? Chapter 31. Jacob saw the countenance of Laban. Behold, it was not toward him as before. Even Laban is feeling it. Laban suddenly realizes the moment he started paying wages to Jacob, Jacob is increasing in flocks. Laban and his children had the flock. It was theirs. They knew very well the things involved in bringing up of flocks of sheep. And when Jacob asked for a wages of spotted flocks, they would have laughed at within themselves. He's asking for a very small wages, but suddenly when they see it is increasing a lot, they should have understood there's a blessing of God. They failed to do that. Let's go to verse 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of your fathers, to your kindred, I'll be with you. Now it comes very clearly. God says, return to the promised land. Return to your fathers and to your kindred. Your father Isaac is still living there. Your relatives are there. Go back to that place. In other words, God said, pushing him back to the land where Abraham came, the promised land. Now, Jacob married Laban's daughter. So, what does he do? He goes step by step. Verse 4. Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flocks. Now, Rachel and Leah are living in the tents. Maybe not with the flocks. The flocks are in two groups. The children of Jacob are looking after their own flocks. Jacob is looking after Laban's flock. There is a distance, roughly, if you have to walk from one flock to another flock, it will be 3 days journey. Chapter 30, verse 36, he says, he set up a 3 days journey between himself and Jacob's flocks, Laban's flock, sorry. Jacob, his flock and Laban's flock, 3 days journey. So, having said that, he is with his Laban's flocks. Children have gone away 3 days away. So, he sends word to his wives, Leah and Rachel. So, they come to him. Verse 5. When they come to him, they start discussing. And he said to them, that is Rachel and Leah, I see your father's countenance. It is not toward me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. So now he says very clearly, look, Laban, your father, is not treating me the way he used to look at me or move with me. I see the countenance different. That means his attitude is totally changed now. But the God of my father has been with me. Jacob claims that, look, if you look at what happened in my life, maybe he's having in mind the prosperity through the flocks also. God of my fathers, referring to God of Abraham, God of Jacob, has been with me. Verse 6. You know that with all my power, I have served your father. Now, this one point, Jacob, again, a number of times he says, I served faithfully, I served day and night, I served sincerely. It's very true of Jacob. He served Laban with all these things. Verse 7. Your father deceived me, changed my wages 10 times. Now, can you look at this? Laban was deceiving and trying to change the wages. Now, what Laban would have found is this. Whatever wage, now wage means they're not paying in coins. We know how the wages are counted by the sheep. This kind of sheep you take, that kind of sheep I take. So sheep are in different colors. Usually it is whitish wool, but sometimes a little bit coloration is there. So there must have been, based on that, dividing it. Laban is changing it again and again, calling Jacob and saying, no, no, let us make it this way, let us make it that way. That's all. He says, 10 times has changed, but God permitted him not to hurt me. Jacob is clear cut one thing. For example, if Laban said, all the spotted is mine, those which are not spotted is yours, Jacob says, most of the flocks became without spots. So I got them. If Laban changes exactly opposite, it comes the other way. Jacob says, I can see the hand of God upon my working. I see the blessing of God. This is acknowledgement of Jacob. He has seen it himself. That was a fact also. Then, verse 8. If he said this, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the cattle bore speckled. If Laban said, the striped shall be your wages, then bore all the flocks striped. This is what Jacob's experience has been. Thus God has taken away the cattle of your fathers, given them to me. He says that. Then he explains a dream. This is what he tells his wives, Leah and Rachel. Verse 10. And it came to pass at the time that the flocks conceived, I lifted up my eyes and saw in my dream, he says in dream, behold, the rams which leaped upon the flock were striped and speckled and spotted. And the angel of God spoke unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. I said, here I am. Verse 12, he said, lift up your eyes and see all the rams leap upon the cattle, striped and speckled, spotted. For I have seen all that Laban does unto you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar, where you vowed a vow unto me. Arise, get you out from this land, and return unto the land of your kindred. So, he says, look, I saw, God gave me a dream. In that one, I saw all these things. Which one to ask for? So, even if your father changes that, God was blessing me. Jacob is acknowledging the growth of his wealth and prosperity to the Lord God himself. Now he tells his wife, God told me to return back. Now, what is the reaction of Leah and Rachel? Verse 14. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto Jacob, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Now, listen to this very carefully, how both the girls feel, Leah and Rachel. They are something they are not forgotten. Verse 15. Are we not counted of him strangers, because our father has sold us and has quite devoured our money? Now, very interesting. They bring up two accusations against their own fathers, both Leah and Rachel. When Laban said, you serve for my daughter 7 years, I'll give you. Jacob worked for 7 years, but instead of Rachel, he gave Leah. Again, he said, work another 7 years, then he got Rachel. Both these girls, Leah and Rachel, are not happy about it. That was not the custom in the time they lived. What was the custom? It looks the bride or the father will pay money to the bridegroom. That's what it says. He has devoured also our money. That is, he is supposed to have given a money to Jacob for Leah and to Jacob for Rachel. That he never gave. Instead, he made Jacob work for 7 years. They have been watching this very closely. So they say that two things they say. Our father sold us because he made you work 7 years. Your 7-year wages is Leah, and next 7-year wages is Rachel. We are sold already. You worked for us. Second, the bride money which you should have given, he didn't give it. So, what portion we have with our father? That is all both of them telling. 16, verse 16. For all the riches which God has taken from our father, that is ours. Now look at how confidently both of them talk. Whatever we have now, all the cattle, everything, mention is all ours. It might be from father Laban, makes no difference, it's ours. And our children's, it belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said unto you, please do. If God has asked you to go, go. We will come with you. Finished. Jacob got the full allegiance of his entire family. Because if Leah and Rachel agree, the whole family is with him. Verse 17. Jacob rose up, set his sons and wives upon camels, carried away all his cattle, all his goods which he has gotten, the cattle of his gathering which he had gotten in Padan Aram, to go to Isaac, his father, in the land of Canaan. Now, he gathers everything, waits for a time. He must be having a lot of servants. So Laban's sheep, which was looking after, left with the Laban's servants. His sheep, which his sons were looking after, took everything, took his wife's cattle, tent, everything, saddled on the camels. He waited for something. When was it? Look at it. Verse 19. Laban went down to shear his sheep. And Laban, he knew very well, Laban will go away to shear his sheep. So Laban went down to shear his sheep. Now, who was looking after Laban's sheep? Jacob. So, it appears that in the past also, when Jacob was looking after the sheep, probably Laban will come there and say, I'm going to shear the sheep, you go back, be with your wives, Leah and your children and all, spend time with them, because children were away one side, wives are away another side. So Laban during sharing time must be relieving Jacob. That's what we can understand from this. Because sharing must have happened earlier also. So Jacob knew this. So this time when Laban came to do the sharing, he quietly left all the sheep with Laban. He walked away, informed his children, asked them to come. There's a 3 days journey between them. Remember? So he takes his 2 wives and all that is got, their servants and this thing, joins with the sons, 3 days journey, keeps moving. That's what has happened. He just walks away. He didn't tell Laban. The reason maybe why he didn't tell Laban is, last time when he told Laban, Laban said, no, 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 stay back, God has blessed me. So he was little bit probably afraid that Laban may not relieve him. Let's look at verse 19. Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. The reason for stealing is not given. Rachel stole. Probably Rachel from the childhood, even Leah from the childhood were idol worshippers. Don't forget it. They are used to that idol worship so much. When Jacob came, he was not an idol worshipper. He must have shared about the God of Abraham. Leah moved out fully. Rachel probably did not move. She was this side and that side. She must have thought, let me carry the idols away. We are going away. I need their blessing too. So Rachel's, these are all small figurines, not big idols. I don't know how many yet. All the images is taken. Verse 20. Jacob stole away unawares to Laban, the Aramean. In that, he did not tell him that he's going away. Jacob fled with all that he had. He rose up, passed over the river, set his face toward Mount Gilead. He crossed the river, that must be the river Jordan there probably, and he came to Gilead. Gilead is in present day Israel also is there. Verse 22. It was told Laban on the 3rd day. Now you see the 3rd day. So there are 3 days journeys there, na? It took 3 days time. He has already moved. The servants are there, and Laban is sharing the sheep. Probably they would have seen, or I don't know, because the wife's tent, everything they would have taken away, gone, na? So people would have noticed definitely. The messages reaches Laban 3 days, 3 days after. So Laban took his brethren with him. Laban, he took his own brothers. I mean, our relatives, we can say. Pursued after Jacob 7 days. It took him 7 days to catch him. They overtook him in Mount Gilead. Near Mount Gilead, they come and meet Jacob. What happens? Verse 24, God intervenes. God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night, said unto him, take heed that ye speak not to Jacob, whether good or bad. God has given a warning literally. I don't want him to say anything, even good or bad. So Laban is now shaken up. He knew what exactly he has to do. Verse 25. Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren encamped in the mount of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? That you were stolen away unawares to me, carried away my daughters as captives, taken with a sword? Why did you flee away secretly, steal away from me, and did not tell me? I might have sent you away with mirth, songs, tamarind, and with harp. Now Laban, because God warned him, now he says, I would have sent you away if you told me, with all the celebrations. Whether he would have done it or not is a question mark. But now, because God told him that, it happened. Now let's pause for a moment here. God intervened. So if you look at Jacob, Jacob was a little bit worried that Laban will not let him go. If at all Jacob had that faith, the faith of Abraham, he should have prayed to God, God, I'm going to tell Laban and go. You take care of it. God would have taken care of it in the same way. He would have warned Laban. Laban would have sent him away with all festivities. That would happen definitely. But Jacob was very scared. He has gone through difficult times. He himself was a deceiver, so naturally he is fearful of deception. Verse 28. Having not allowed me to kiss my sons and daughters, this is what Laban is telling him. You have done foolishly in so doing. It's very true. God is chiding, rebuking Jacob through Laban. Jacob could have believed in God and rested in him. Verse 29. It is in the power of my hand to do your, but God of your father. Look at what Laban says. God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, take heed that he speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So I know I'm not going to do anything. Now, though you would wish to be gone, because you greatly longed after your father's house, yet why have you stolen my gods? Now he says, God of your father spoke to me. Okay, you want to go, go. But why did you take away my idols, my gods? 31. Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take me by force, your daughters from me. He said, that's why I ran away. Next thing Jacob says is, look at verse 32. Whomsoever you find your gods, let him not live. Now you have to be very careful. See, God uses what comes out of our mouth. In fact, in the judgment also, Paul is talking about in Romans chapter 2. He will judge you what you have in your conscience. That's what he says. So Jacob says, the person who stole your idols, let that person not live. You can mark it, it happened. Rachel died on the way, isn't it? She didn't reach even the patriarch's grave. So, let's go to verse 32. Whoever stolen, let him not die. Our brethren discerned what is yours with me, take it to you. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. Rachel didn't tell anybody. Jacob did not know anything. Verse 33. Laban went into Jacob's tent, Leah's tent, two maidservant tents, but he found them not. He could not find. He's searching the tents. They went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images, put them in a Carmel saddle, sat upon them. See how smartly she is deceiving her own father. She put saddle, a small stool like the made of Carmel's saddle, it called, and put the images there. She's sitting there. Laban says, all the 10 found them not. Rachel said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before you, for the custom of the woman is upon me. He searched, he found not the images. So Rachel now cheats her own father by hiding the idols. Verse 36. Jacob was angry, upbraided Laban. Jacob answered and said, Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin? That you have so hotly pursued after me. Although you have searched all my goods, you have not found all of your household gods. Set it before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us. So Laban came with his relatives. His relatives also listening to what Jacob is telling. Where are your gods? Nobody stole it. Why did it come like this? 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not caused the rain, and the rams of your flocks have I not eaten. Look at the way Jacob looked after Laban's wife. Full sincerity. I didn't touch any of your property. That which was torn of the beast, I brought not into your hand. Even some of your flocks were captured and killed by beasts. I didn't show them as a count to be reduced in your number. I didn't do this. I bore the loss out of my hand. You required it. You told me to pay it. I paid for it. Whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, heat consumed me, cold by the night, my sleep departed from my eyes. I have to look after it because even if you lose one sheep, I have to pay back for it. 41. Thus I have been 20 years in your house, served you 14 years for your daughters, 6 years for your flocks. You have changed my wages 10 times. See, he says 20 years I served, 6 years. That is what Jacob says. And you change my wages how many times? 10 times. Yourself are changing my wages 10 times. Verse 42. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac, had been with me, surely you would have sent me away now empty. He says very clearly, if God of my forefathers were not with me, you would have sent me empty. It is God who has blessed me. Jacob is clearly understanding this. He's acknowledging God in this verse. That is why you see, the pattern, although he was a deceiver, the blessing was there. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, he talked like that. Verse 42 we are reading. Except the Lord God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac was with me, you would have deceived me and sent me away. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. He says, last night God came to me, he told me, because God has seen the way I worked for you. Verse 43. Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, the children are mine, flocks are mine, all that you see is mine. What can I do this day unto these my daughters, children whom you have born? Laban says very clearly, all your wives are mine, they are my children. Your sons, your children are my grandchildren, they belong to me. Your flock is mine, everything belongs to me only. 44. Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, I and you. Let it be for a witness between me and you. Laban says, let us make a covenant. Laban is also a little bit worried or scared of Jacob. He's quite big now, growing bigger. What is the covenant they make? Verse 45. Jacob took a stone, set it up for a pillar. Jacob always does. Remember, Even in Bethel, he took the stone of a pillar and makes it stand as a pillar. So makes it as a pillar. 46. Jacob said to his brethren, gather some stone. They took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. So remember, one stone he made a pillar. By the side of it, he put a stone heap, sort of a platform. They made a platform there. They were all eating. Who? Laban's group. And this. So he must have made a huge platform. They raised it. Now, 47. Laban called it Jagar Sahaduta. Jacob called it Galid. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me this day. Therefore, the name of it called Galid. They sit, eat on a stone heap, and Laban says, this is a witness. How? One side is Laban, other side is Jacob. We will not cross over. That's what he says. 49. The name is changed to Mizpah. It was called Galid first, now it is Mizpah. The Lord watch between me and you when we are absent from one another. If you afflict my daughters, if you take otherwise beside my daughters, no man sees us, say God is witness between you and me. Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, behold this pillar, which I have set between you and me as a witness. 52. The heap is a witness. Pillar is a witness that I will not pass over this heap to you. You shall not pass over this heap, this pillar, unto me to harm. Laban says, the pillar at Gilead, Mizpah. North of Mizpah, Laban. South of Mizpah, Jacob. That's it. Don't cross over, come to north. That's all. They agreed. 53. The God of Abraham, God of Nahor, God of the father, judged between us. Jacob sore by the fear of his father Jacob. So, Laban uses the word now. Let God of Abraham and Nahor, see, they're all related. Na? Laban is related to them. So he knows that the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor. He knows the God who called Abraham. He is a witness between us. Jacob swear by that God. The fear of his father Isaac is God. Isaac feared. He has seen God, Isaac fearing the God of Abraham. That's what he used the word fear of his father Isaac. Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, called his brethren to eat bread. They did eat and tarried all night in the mount. In the mount, they had food. That's a witness. Laban also there. Jacob made a feast. They tarried. 55. Early in the morning, Laban rose up, kissed his sons, daughters, blessed them. Laban departed, returned unto his place. It was a peaceful witness agreement finally they made. And it was also a departure once and for all. Laban goes one way, Jacob, Leah, and Rachel, and all the servants, all his sons, all the flocks have come. They start journeying from Mizpah towards the promised land. Now that's how they come. So we find Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob now returned back to the promised land from Padan Aram. So that is what we have studied in chapter 30. So we have been looking at we have been seeing the life of Jacob all the time. So now we have seen how he lived with Laban, and as Jacob was deceiving his father and his brother, he got deceived for Laban. He met his own match. Both are equally deceiving each other. So Jacob was deceived quite a number of times in his wages and many, even in the marriage also for 7 years for Rachel, he got Leah. All these things has happened. So Jacob now returns with his whole family, parting away from Laban, making an agreement that they will not harm each other. So that is why we have come. We will be continuing this, God willing, in the new year. So as we complete chapter 31 today, as usual, there's a time is left